It is a Better Late Than Never podcast. And I don't know, I decided to do this again. I haven't done it in a really long time. Um, Not because I don't have things to talk about, but just kind of I felt like, are the things I want to talk about really even worth talking about? But whatever, it's no big deal. It is January the 30th, 2023. So we are almost at the end of the first month of this year. And that's significant to me because last year was a trip. And I don't know, I can't remember the last time I did one of these, but so I may or may not have mentioned things that have happened, but last year was a trip. I finished massage therapy schooling, so now all I gotta do is take my license test. It was a very fun, sad, rough, educational experience. Um, Not to get into too much detail about it, but got through most of, sometime around July of last year. I had a very close friend of mine, well, not close, but a friend of mine passed away who had more or less inspired me to start doing massage therapy. And I also had a family member pass away roughly in the same time frame, like within like a month or 2 months of each other. And also got into probably my first car accident I've ever been in. All that happening in like pretty quick succession over the course of like I'd say like a few months, like within like 3 to 4 months. Two people pass away and then a car accident. Um, and then that happened around like the middle of my schooling. That actually happened around around the rougher part of the semester where I was essentially working as a intern and was giving free massages and scheduling and writing notes and going through like pretty much a mock experience of what it would be like, which was probably the toughest part of the entire program. So it was a very rough thing, but I came out of it and learned a lot of things about myself, um, about my temperament, about who I am as a person, different traumas and trials I've gone through, stuff like that. So it was a pretty intense experience, and I'm glad I got through it. Um, and yeah, that was pretty much all of last year was just going through school, and I've never actually done a program like that where it's all in just one go. It was just there was no real break. Like we had like I'd say throughout the whole year I had a total of four. We had about half a month, so I'm gonna say a total of 5 weeks off. And during 2 of those weeks or 3 of those weeks was either occupied by like um, dealing with a car accident or a funeral or like just going through very intense grieving processes. But went through all that, and now we're here in January the 30th, and it has yet to snow. I've seen no snow, but I feel like that's the norm now. Everyone's like expecting it to just be nice and sunny and it's going to be beautiful and no snow this year, which is really, I like the snow. I like when it snows. I have yet to ever experience a snowy Christmas. As far as I can remember, barring like one time when I was a kid, and I'm not even sure if this really happened or if it's just wishful like imagination, like, you know, if it's just my imagination wanting the memory to happen, so it just conjured it. But I think maybe one time when I was a kid, it actually snowed on Christmas. Every other year, it never snowed, and I wish it would because I don't know. I love Christmas. Christmas is my favorite holiday of the year. I love the lights. I love the spirit of it. I love the festivities of it. And that's the thing too, is like I'm already like people, there's a few people, maybe like one or two people in my neighborhood who have still have their lights up. And you hear about people who get so upset about like take down your fucking lights. Christmas ended so long ago. Take down your fucking. It's like just leave them up. Like, why do you want to take down your lights and just be boring again? Like, I feel like I want there to be year-round lights. Like every month, people just swap out their lights, but you still have the lights up. I know your electric bill is gonna fucking go through the roof, but I like lights. Like, why does everyone? Why are these Grinches out here like take down your fucking lights and let everything just go back to being boring and unadorned and just simplistic? Like, I don't know. When I drive down the street and I see a bunch of Christmas lights, it makes me. It just genuinely fills me with joy. I'm like happy, and people just leave them up. Leave your Christmas lights up. If you still have your Christmas lights up, leave those motherfuckers up all year round. Anyone gives you shit, they've got problems. They're sad because they don't have lights to put up. They're sad because they got coal for 29 years. I just leave your lights up. I love Christmas lights. I love Christmas. Um, it's a blast. This past Christmas though, despite me loving the spirit of Christmas, it was a little bit of a bummer. I had it wasn't a bummer per se, like worse things could happen. Um, but it was kind of it was awkward because like I said last year, I had around Christmas time I had just finished massage therapy school. I had specifically taken a week off of Christmas because I remember uh I was still kind of grieving over my friend going over the process of that. Um, Other friends, other mutual friends that we had were still dealing with that. And the year before that, me and a group of friends had gone to an amusement park, a Christmas themed amusement park called Christmas Town in Busch Gardens. And that was a hoot. I had a great time there. And I had tried to get my family to go to it this year. They couldn't make it. They have so much stuff going on with their kids, all these sports and activities they do. So I bought the damn tickets, and this is something I learned. And I knew this before, like I've already known this, but this was just like reinforced to me. Never, ever, 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 ever make plans around other people's schedules. That's something that like I've always known, but because I like to involve other people in fun, jovial activities, I always am like, okay, let's try to get as many people as we can. Let's try to get people to be able to do this. And it's like, uh, I bought my tickets in advance. I told everyone buy your tickets in advance, because A, you get a discount, and B, I'm giving y'all ample time. Like I'm giving you like damn near 2 months in advance, and no one wanted. I guess people either didn't want to go or they just didn't have time. Like other things came up, which I understand. It's fine. It's no big deal. It was just like, that's $70 down the Camole, and I don't mind going to do stuff by myself, but I don't want to go do stuff by myself like that. Going to an amusement park by yourself is just there's something to me having gone to amusement parks primarily with other people, it would just feel like an empty experience. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe you do that. Maybe some people do that. They go to amusement parks by themselves, just like they go on vacation by themselves, they travel by themselves. To me, that would just be a genuinely miserable, kind of depressing experience. So I just said, screw it. That's just a lesson learned. Like, don't buy your tickets in advance unless everyone has already completely consented to go. And that was just like screw up on my part. But also like if you have it like plans, like vacation plans and stuff, don't base it around other people because plans change so much. And that's happened several times where I had things I wanted to do. I try to get other people in on it and they're just shit happens, life happens. So it's whatever. It is what it is. Um, but other than that, uh, year ended pretty well, and so now we're in January, and this month it hasn't flown by, but it's just felt like very, I don't want to say repetitive or uneventful. Like some things have happened. Mostly good things have happened this month. Like this has actually been a pretty good month. Um yeah, so what I've decided to do, and this is the reason why it's been a good month, is I love spreadsheets. I am a nerd for I most things I do when it comes to organizing, like any sort of information or notes, school notes, anything like that, I always format it in a spreadsheet. And what I've started doing is I made a what I call a wellness spreadsheet. And what essentially that is when I was in college, when I first got to college, and some people have probably heard about this, or probably a lot of people have, I don't know. But there's the idea of the wellness wheel that they told me about where it's like you have your physical wellness, mental wellness, spiritual, social, occupational, financial, and if I did say emotional already, there's emotional and then there's like sexual. And I don't know why, but I always liked that idea of like taking different aspects of, a person's, I don't know what the word would be, not like your it has nothing to do with really psychology, but taking those aspects and what I did was I made a spreadsheet of each of those categories. It's super simple. And I just go by every day. So, like, the whole left column is just every day. And I have on the top row, like, what that wellness category is. And then beneath that is a total. And every day throughout the spreadsheet, I add a point every time I do something regarding that category of wellness. And every day I don't do something, I take away a point. So let's say for physical wellness, I have to go work out or go, jog or hit the punching bag or lift weights or do whatever. I got to work out. And every day I do that, I get 1 point. Every day I don't do that, I lose a point. And it's the same for like environmental wellness. So like every day you at a point when you clean up around the house or you organize your stuff or whatever, and you lose a point every day you don't do that. And the whole idea is to make it like a game, like genuine taking care of yourself and your well-being is like a game. And you add points and you take away points when you do or don't do it. And I imagine the idea is like leveling up when you get to 50 points. Like once you reach 50 points, you've consecutively done something for, I'm going to say 60 because that's roughly 2 months. So once you get to 60 points, it's like leveling up, quote unquote. And then you just keep going from there. And I really like that because I, I don't know. This probably be the silliest thing, but it's like taking that aspect of like an RPG of a game, just making life a game, and like just seeing those numbers add up. I am the sort of person who hates seeing deficits. Um, the way I've set up my spreadsheet is that anytime I lose a point, like -1, is the cell in the spreadsheet is red, and every time I get a point +1, it's green. And I do that the same with my financial logging. Like whenever I spend money and I log it in my budget, it's red if I lose money and it's green if I made money. Just that color coding it's significant to me um, because I hate seeing red. I hate seeing the deficit. I hate seeing minus something. Like that irks me. And so I have a perpetual like psychological desire to keep seeing green, keep seeing green, keep seeing positive growth, positive growth, positive growth. And so that kind of spurs me. It's like this weird, like it's not OCD or like pure O or fucking I don't know. It could be an autistic thing, but uh, just that aspect really drives me to like want to do better. And the big thing about it is like I can keep track of what aspects in my life I'm lacking in. Because I keep a journal. I journal and use a diary a lot. I do it daily. I write down and journal daily. But so even with that, that's more just getting whatever like thoughts or ramblings that are in my head down on paper or whatever insecurities or emotions I'm feeling down on paper. But to have this wellness log allows me to like genuinely keep track of like what aspects of my life am I falling behind on and what aspects of my life am I in a surplus in. So for instance, I've added extra categories to my wellness. So like there's uh natural wellness. So the idea of like immersing in nature, going outside, spending time in the sun, waking up early to the sunrise, spending, like at least 30 minutes outside or getting fresh air, exercising outside, even just sitting outside, lounging outside. I've fallen seriously behind on that because I've been waking up very late because now that school is over, and I don't necessarily my job, where I work, I don't have to wake up early. I can wake up more or less by noon. As long as I wake up by noon, I can get to work because I work the evening shift. So, um, I I don't really have that much of a reason to wake up early until I started making the spreadsheet, and I'm gonna use this as a catalyst of like wake up when the sun rises. And to me that just feels healthier, like it feels natural. Like I know there's a lot of people who are like, maybe the grass is greener on the other side, like, oh man, I wish I could sleep in, I wish I could, you know stay up late and sleep in. And that's fine for like maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or two times every 2 weeks, something like that. But when you're doing that every day you're waking up super late, it doesn't feel good. You feel like you're just missing all of the sunlight, all of your day. And that's weird because like I'm a night owl. I naturally have an inclination to stay up late. Especially if left to my own devices, if I don't have anything I gotta do, I'll just stay up late. And there's pros and cons to that. The pro is that I feel that I generally am more creative at night. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I guess it's because the idea of at nighttime, like I'm talking like 11 o'clock and later. I feel like my brain just, there's this trigger of like, I don't have anything else to do but draw or make music or whatever I'm doing. Um, there's nothing else to be done but that. Like it's too late to literally go anywhere. There's no chance someone's gonna call me for plans this late. Um, well, I know one person who might, but most people I know are not gonna do that. So, uh, that's the point where it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna just put my all into this thing. But the caveat of that, the drawback is I'll stay up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, and if I'm trying to get in this habit of waking up early, I can't run on just 2 hours of sleep and wake up at 6. So it's this weird dynamic of like, I want to wake up early because I want to be able to enjoy the day. I want to be able to enjoy my morning, be able to go outside and run outside and walk and be outside and enjoy the full day, because when I'm at work, I'm inside. I can't really go outside. There's no option for that, or it's very minimal, I should say. Um, so yeah, it's just weird caveat. But at the same time, I was thinking about that, like the idea of, when are you most creative during the day? What time of day do you feel your creativity peaks? When do you feel like it dips? And whether or not that's something to accept as yourself, like accept as a pattern in yourself, or is that something you should combat? You know, let's say you want to be, you're like me and you want to be a professional artist. Like that's something, that's your drive, that's your passion. is it good to accept like, hey, this is the time of day when I'm most creative, so that's when I'm going to do it? Or is it, should you have the mindset of, no, no matter what time it is, no matter when it is, no matter what day of the week or whatever, I can pull that creativity, I can force it out. Even if there's no motivation for it, even if I, like I said, have to force it, I could still create. I can still draw that creative energy from that well of creativity and just make it happen. So I feel like that's a test, at least for me, and maybe it could be that for you too, listening or people out there. Like, if you feel that you're more creative at this time of day or during this period of the day, can you figure out why that is? Like, why do you feel this creative at this time? And draw that creativity out at random intervals during the day. And if you can't do that, or you find that it's difficult, like really analyze, think introspectively, like what are the circumstances that allow this to happen? What are the circumstances that don't allow it? Are there external circumstances? Like, I can't, trying to think of like, you know, let's say you're in a band and you're like, I can't be as creative when I'm not practicing with other people versus when I'm by myself. Or I can't be creative unless I'm, excuse me, in this space versus in this other space. Or I can't be this creative unless I have these tools. Oh, oh Jesus, excuse me. Uh, you know, geez, that burp. I just burped out whatever idea I had running in my head. I burped out my train of thought. Um, the space you're in. What external factors are allowing you or preventing you from drawing out that creativity? For instance, for me, I find that I can draw or yeah, draw the best when I'm at home, later at night. That's like my natural innate, like that's when I can be the most creative is at night in my, at home, whatever, in my room drawing. But there have been times where I've been at work. There's nothing to do at work, or I've had other jobs where there was very little to do. So I would just bring my laptop, no one cared, and I would just draw. There's been times when I've gone to like a library or gone to a card shop and just sat around and drawn and been just as creative. So to me, it was like that. To me, that proved okay, it's not the environment, it's no real external circumstance. I can do this anywhere. So now it just falls onto me. What do I need to do to draw that creativity out of me? Um, where is it coming from? And I think, for creatives, people who like to make things or like to get in any sort of headspace, like where you need to focus, concentrate, or do whatever, how do you get into that space and, you know, just, I don't know. I don't know what the fucking point of this is. The whole point is just, I guess, is it a good thing? How can you draw creativity outside of the normal boundaries where you would normally draw it out? I guess. I don't know. Um, but yeah, what else is going on? Um, I'm really sick of this. I hate this image for the podcast. What I'd like to do is figure out how I can get like a repeating loop or a GIF or a video um of like the ocean and like have nice ocean sounds in the background because I love the beach. I'm very much a beach person. I love the ocean. That's like my dream. My dream in life, one of my dreams in life, one of my goals in life is to own property on the beachfront where I that's like my primary residence. I live on the beach. Like that's oh to like wake up and go to sleep to the sound of waves in the background would like genuine waves and like get out of your bed and look out the window and you see the ocean. Like that would be goals, man. Goals. Um What else is going on? I watched the NFC AFC championships yesterday, and watched the Kansas City Chiefs win and the Eagles win. The Eagles, that was, oh my God, that was like, I felt so bad for. They beat them so bad. I don't even remember who they played. That's how bad they beat them. Who did they play? Like I honestly, because here's the thing, I like the Cowboys for no specific reason. I like Dallas only because when I was a small child, I liked Dallas. Thing is, I don't even really like football that much. I'm more of a, if you watched anything on my channel, I'm much more of a rugby fan. I like rugby and I like soccer, but I watch football here and there. It was more just a family thing. Like my family was watching it, so I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and watch that, hang out with my family. Who The 49ers, man, to fall down to, what was it, their third string, either their third string or their fourth string quarterback, just getting leveled. Like every play, their quarterback is just getting rocked. And I'm like, and this was the thing I've always said, and this is a reason why I prefer rugby as a sport than football. And this is going to get super opinionated. I think football is a fine sport. You can like whatever sport you like, but this is just my opinion on football. And the reason why I don't like it that much compared to rugby. I am not a fan of favoritism in sports when it comes to position. And I don't like the fact that football puts so much favoritism on the quarterback. And I understand the dynamic of the sport as it is now. The quarterback makes a lot of decisions, is essentially the captain of the team, at least on the offensive side. And, there's a lot of pressure on them. I I don't agree in red jerseying during practice. What does that mean? That means during practice, in practice, I think from every age, like pretty much forever, like since you from pee wee all the way up to pros, you're not allowed to tackle the quarterback during practice. You can't touch him. You can like kind of maybe bump into him, but you cannot tackle the quarterback. And I think that's ridiculous in my opinion because how is he going to get used to fending off defenders if he never has to do it? How's he going to resist getting injured? How's he going to know how to take a hit? How's he going to know any of this if you never train him on how to do it? Like I think about how football was when it first was conceptualized up to like maybe the 50s and 60s when the forward pass was becoming more prominent. The quarterback was just another running back. The quarterback was expected to run the ball just as much, if not as, just as much as the running back. And now the quarterback is just so pampered and so protected. And it shows in like the entire dynamic of the offense. Just look at the 49ers in the championship. Your quarterback, your lead, your starter quarterback gets injured. You fall down to your second, third string, and now your entire offense is done. There's nothing they can do. You've essentially lost the game because one specific player is injured, one player is compromised. And it just feels like that's a flaw in the dynamic of how a team should be built, where you put so much precedence on this star player who, in my opinion, does maybe the third least amount of actual physical work compared to the other players. Like behind the punter and the kicker, like it's not that much the quarterback is doing physically demanding. I mean, I'm not saying it's an easy job. It's definitely not easy to be a quarterback. It's a very difficult, stressful thing to do. But I'm talking when we talk to about raw physical effort exerted is not that much compared to the other players. Once that player is out, your whole offense is done. There's like nothing they can do. And to me, that's just like I compare that to rugby, where no matter what position you are, you're expected to hit, you're expected to get hit, you're expected to be good at hitting the guy, you're expected to be good at fending off guys. Everyone essentially does the same job in its most basic form. Now, obviously, you got your forwards and your backs have different like things they're doing consistently throughout the game, but essentially everyone does the same thing. There's no, as far as I know, I mean, I'm not that nuanced in it, but as far as I know, when it comes to rugby, this player gets injured. Let's say your I don't know, your halfback gets injured, you throw in your next halfback or somebody else to take his place, that's not going to completely dismantle your entire team. Like your team's still going to be able to do just fine, more or less. Um, it's just because everyone is essentially doing the same thing. It's not all dependent on this one player. Versus, like I said, football, your quarterback's injured, y'all. Unless your running back is extraordinary, y'all have done. You're done. Like the offense is lost, and you just got to hope your defense. Like to me, that's just that the 49ers versus the Eagles yesterday was a shining example of that, of like your quarterbacks don't know how to take hits. They don't have to learn how to take hits. Like, oh my god, I saw and this is here's the thing. Yesterday everyone I know wanted Cincinnati to win because I don't know that much about football, but apparently like Cincinnati hasn't been that team in a long time, and everyone's just tired of Mahomes by now. And it's like Mahomes already won. Let's see somebody else win. Underdog situation. And I was pulling for Cincinnati for and just for the sake of like diversity and like you know Kansas City already went to the Super Bowl. I don't remember if they won or not, but they already went. So let's see someone else go. And I saw Joe Burrow. This was like late in the game, maybe like third quarter. And Joe Burrow like drops back, he throws the ball, he gets bumped into, bumped into. Not a tackle, not even a shove. He gets bumped into and falls back and immediately gets up and starts like waving at the ref like, "Yo, did you not see like I just got hit? That's roughing the quarterback." That that made me genuinely like lose respect. Not for like that was embarrassing to me. Like that just cemented further what I'm already saying of like it's football. It's a contact sport and you get bumped into and you're going to start shouting for roughing the pass. Like are you it makes me like question how can you this is why it's difficult for me to watch football because that kind of stuff is so much more prevalent. I'm not saying it's appropriate to the quarterback threw the football and then 5 seconds later you leveled and you beat the living shit out of him. You just like pick him up and body slam him onto the field. But like you get bumped into and you're calling roughing the passer. Like to me that was embarrassing. Like for a contact sport to have, for players to be that I don't want to say overprotected, and I understand why it is, why it's like that, because you're paying these guys so much fucking money, and whatever. I'm not gonna get into the debate of our players paid too much money or whatever. I don't care, but it's a contact sport, and it just to me from a I don't want to say a foundation because I didn't learn about rugby until I was in college. I grew up around football and basketball. But from a affinity for rugby to see that kind of I don't want to say without using extremely to see that is like it's embarrassing. It's like, oh, what is this? Is this basketball now? Is this soccer now? Is football becoming soccer? Like this is a contact sport. Of course you're gonna get hit. But anyway, that was embarrassing to me. I feel so bad for the guy who pushed Mahomes out of bounds. Like, and that pretty much I'm not gonna say that cost them the game, but Oh, he was already out of bounds, and I don't know. I don't know. I felt bad, honestly, of all of those, the three, like, of that situation, I felt bad for the guy they ran into. Because essentially, if you didn't see what happened, Mahomes was running down the sideline, and um, one of the Bengals pushed him. Like, Mahomes was already stepped out of bounds, and one of the Bengals kind of pushed him, like, shoved him forward. Mahomes loses his footing, and both of them, the Bengal and Mahomes, collide into some guy in the sidelines. And I was like, that guy is concussed. Like, y'all are checking for this dude who ran into him. Like, check for the guy. His brains might be splattered across the bleachers. But that was, wow. But yeah, that was a tight game. And yeah, that's my opinion on that. Just, I just don't understand. I don't know. Like I said, I just be talking in circles at this point. Um, what else is going on? Because I live under a rock. I don't know about much what's happening in the world. So that's another reason why it's like doing this podcast is like I don't have much to talk about other than my own neurotic bullshit. Oh, so this is a hot topic right now, and I'm just gonna give my opinion on it because it's just what my opinion is. Hang on, I'm gonna clear some disgusting phlegm from my throat, and then I'll come back to this. Sorry, doing all this talking like, yeah. Anyway, the I don't watch the news anymore. I stopped watching the news around around late 2020, early 2021. I definitely didn't watch any news during 2022. I don't pay attention to the news. I don't pay attention to politics. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. To me, it's all just irrelevant, tribalistic, just back and forth. Nothing's really getting solved. The Memphis situation with the five cops who um, essentially murdered that one guy. The thing is, where to start with this? Where to how to tactfully but yet untactfully and truthfully unpack this. When during 2020, during the whole George Floyd situation, there were riots, protests, a whole bunch of shit going on. I remember I wrote a Facebook post explaining my opinion on it. And everything that I'm about to say is just my opinion. We all have opinions. So you don't like my opinion, fuck you. Like, go voice your own opinion on your own podcast. Um, I wrote a post basically saying that I don't. When I wrote that post, my whole point was we were making so much shit about race. It was so much Black Lives Matters, all of this stuff about, again, we were making it a racial situation. In my opinion, none of this is racially motivated. None of it. It's not a race problem. It's not a problem of ethnicity. None of it is. George Floyd being killed, all this stuff about Black Lives Matter, it's not, to me, it has nothing to do with race. It doesn't. What it has to do with, at the core of it, is police brutality and no punishment for police officers who do this kind of stuff. The underqualification of police officers and the level of entitlement police officers have. What I'm saying with that is I had this analogy. I have this analogy. And it doesn't even have to be an analogy because you can look at around the world and see where it's still happening. Because in countries where the majority of people are one ethnicity, police brutality still happens. If America was an all white nation, or an all Latino nation, or an all whatever nation, police brutality would still happen. Why? It would happen. Who would it happen to? It would happen to poor people. It would happen to people who are. It would happen to anybody, really. It would happen to poor people, people who are, drug addicts, people who are disadvantaged in some sort of way. And the same people, the people who would commit that stuff, it they would just find some other reason to do it. Race just happens to be convenient. It's a convenient variable for people to say, oh, well, it's because of that. It's because of, you know, he's black, so that's why they do it. That's just a variable that people cling to. That's just an easy, like, that's an easy asset to be prejudiced against. But people who do that, they will find something else to be prejudiced about. It could be something as simple as your eye color. It could be something as simple as your hair color, what part of the country you're from, what part of town you're from. Like that kind of stuff trickles down to the most mundane details. And the people who do that would do it regardless. It doesn't matter where it is, who it is. So when you're saying stuff like, oh, police brutality is always against black people, no, it's not. It's against everybody. There are plenty of white people who have suffered from police brutality, plenty of Latino people, plenty of Asian people. Everyone has dealt with it. Everyone does. And it doesn't it the issue comes down to how are you trying the people, how are the people who are committing this being punished? Um and it should be the same for everybody. Um, and the thing that happened in Memphis, more or less, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or say, "Oh, I told you so," but that was my opinion back in 2020, and you saw, and even at that time, you saw it around the world. You look at what happened in Hong Kong with how the police were brutalizing protesters. You saw it in how you could see it in the history of Jamaica, where black police officers brutalized people who were different, Rastafarians, whoever they were. It happens everywhere, and it doesn't matter what the ethnicity is. And this kind of just, in my opinion, proves that case of five black officers kill a black individual. Now race goes out the window. Where's Black Lives Matter when that comes up? It's not. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The problem is not what the race is. The problem is at the core police brutality. Who is allowed to become a police officer? What they have to go through to become a police officer? What their punishments are going to be as police officers, which is very skewed. No matter what. It's very skewed in that regard. I can understand where race comes up, where it's like on the side of the police officer. So I can understand that argument of like, white police officers don't get as seriously reprimanded as black officers do. There's the inequality there based on race. So if that, and like I said, I don't really follow the commentary on it. I'm not on Twitter. I don't engage social media. I don't watch the news. But if that's what the commentary is, if that's the perspective people are coming at, okay, fine. In that regard, yes, it is a racial issue in terms of like the punishment on the side of the officers. But when it comes to who is committing the crime, who is suffering from it on the civilian side of things, it's everyone's dealing with it. And in my opinion, until you tackle the root problem and stop using these easy low-hanging variables like race, until you stop using that and start saying, okay, look, the problem is the wrong people are becoming cops. The wrong impression of what a cop is being put into these people's heads. The people aspiring to become cops. The idea of you are above the law, you're above everything, you are absolutely like, no, you're not. Um, until that shifts and changes, this same stuff is going to keep happening over and over and over and over again until you get to the root cause, the root problem, and dismiss all of these, like I said, low hanging variables, these easy variables, these tribalistic variables that are being perpetuated on you, that are being pushed on you, and nothing's going to change because the arbitrary they, which is can be whoever you want, government, whoever, they want you to be tribalistic. They want you to be divided and say them and us and them. We're different. And there is no difference. Those groups are not real. They're what you're assuming of other people until you get to know them, until you understand different perspectives. And I don't know. I was having a conversation with a coworker today about that, about just how tribalistic we still operate on. And I call it chimp brain. Honestly, I call it just operating with your chimp brain. But it's just, it seems like throughout all human history, humans are just incapable, without serious conscious effort, incapable of either recognizing or growing to dismiss our tribalistic tendencies. It's just, it seems ingrained in us. And maybe it's ingrained in just the nature of, you know, the reality we live in. Maybe in some other form of reality or some other form of existence, this is not the case. But the way it just seems like there's very much and I guess you can see it in the natural world too. Animals, for instance, this pack of wolves are going to probably be hostile to that pack of wolves because it's us versus them. But, even as humans, as this higher intellect, that's how intellectual I am, higher intellectual being, we're supposed to, the idea is, oh, we're so much more intelligent, but we still fall into the same trap that causes, I would say, like, if not the most, a huge majority of human suffering, which is just tribalism, of just this idea of us versus them, or even the idea of there is an us and them, the idea of separation, the idea of like, you're not me, so clearly we ain't gonna, you know what I mean? Like, come on, I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. I kind of do, but I just, I don't know. This is why I don't engage in politics. This is why I don't watch the news, because it's the same stuff, and we keep thinking it's so nuanced, it's so new, this is so different, this is so like nothing we've ever seen. It's like maybe in our lifetimes this is new, like, in my lifetime, COVID, the pandemic, is very new. I've never had to live through a pandemic like that. But that's not new in comparison to just the overarch of human existence. And when you think about it that way, I don't know. I'm not going to say it becomes insignificant, but it becomes, you see these patterns, and it makes you feel like, I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to I was listening to a podcast that Zach Hadel was on. Psychic Pebble is the creator of Smiling Friends and one of the funniest people on the planet, in my opinion. And they were just discussing some stuff. I'll put a link of it in the description. They were just talking about just like the duration of mankind, and how when you realize like humans have been around for so long, and humans are, and assuming we don't bomb ourselves to death, and assuming we don't just annihilate each other, humans are going to be around for a while. Assuming, like I said, assuming we don't just annihilate each other, which we seem so keen to do. Um, you see all that, you realize it makes you feel this sort of insignificance that is both comforting and terrifying at the same time. And whether you feel one way or the other is really up to you. There have been there have been so many people before you and me. There's so many people who are going to come after you and me, and they're going to have similar thoughts, and they're going to go, like, I think about, you know, like what the future could be. We have ideas, we have conceptions, but it could be beyond anything we can comprehend right now. Because think about what the future is, what we genuinely have now, right? Technology, electricity, globalization, communication on a global scale. And then think about what it was like, I don't know, in 200 years ago, in 1823, and how much of a stride that is, and how many strides are coming so much faster. It's just becoming faster and faster and faster. And I don't know, I feel like there comes a point where everything, uh uh a bullet has to slow down. You fire a bullet in the air, it's going fast, fast, it's going to have to slow down eventually. Everything that's racing has to slow down. If not for if for no other reason than to catch its breath. And I feel like even development is like that. Even evolution is like that sometimes, where things happen so quickly, so quickly, so quickly, and then it has to either stop in its tracks or something has to slow it down. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing. I don't want to get into the whole like idea of like I don't want to be nihilistic about it because I don't think it's just an interesting thing to think about because so much is happening so quickly and we get so caught up in this idea of right now is so immediate and so unbelievable. But when you think about the perspective of people living through the bubonic plague, like to once they got through that, which they did, once that ended, it was like, oh my goodness, we got through that. Oh man, it I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I guess I'm rambling. I'm genuinely just rambling, but whatever, it's a podcast, it's the whole point. Um but there's certain constants in human behavior. And one of those constants, I think, is a tendency towards tribalism, whether it's conscious or unconscious, a tendency towards a tendency towards complacency in terrible circumstances. Um, a tendency, and what I mean by that is like, you know, we're dealing with an issue with police brutality, and I mean we've always dealt with that. It's been a problem for a very, very fucking long time. And people get upset for a little bit, uproar, oh, and then forget about it, and then it's over, and then it's like, all right, well, back to we got our energy out, and time to move on, and then it just happens again and again and again and again and again, and nothing is really changed about it, because, like I said, and in my opinion, we we fixate on these easy variables, but we don't get to the root of the problem. And even when we address the root of the problem, we don't know how to change it, or we don't come up with good solutions, or we let people who don't really care, people who don't really have that much of a they don't care that much about it, make the decision for us because that's easy and convenient, and then it happens again. And then we blame them, this politician didn't do this, that politician didn't do that. And then another one comes up and says, hey, no, but I got the real solution. I'm really going to change it. And then they don't do anything. And we're like, oh, we hear them out. We're like, oh yeah, he said he's gonna do that, and it's gonna really work, and he's we're gonna put my power into what this guy said, what he promised, and then it doesn't happen. But then another guy comes up and says, well, I promised this and this. Oh, well, I'm gonna put my faith in him now, because it's like that repeats over and over and over and over and over. And until I don't know. I guess until people realize that and make like a genuine change against it, until people recognize that pattern and decide to say, okay, look, these variables don't matter. This low hanging, like, this whole blame game doesn't matter. This whole tribalistic, that group versus us doesn't work. We have to, I don't know what the solution is. I'm not going to act like I know what the solution is. I'm just pointing out the pattern. But, um, yeah. On a lighter note, on a much much lighter note. Um, like I said, this month has been great. Been pretty damn good. Um, I'm genuinely trying to think of some lighter things to talk about, and I'm literally gonna just roll up on Reddit real quick to find a happy topic to talk about because there's so much just crazy shit going on, and you've got to despite all the craziness that's happening, you gotta learn. And I'm not some guru on happiness. Like I have plenty of problems. I have plenty of things that make me unhappy, and trying to figure out ways to deal with it. But you gotta go outside, touch some grass, get some fresh air, and talk to people, and have a genuine discourse with people. And I don't know. It seems like sometimes that can be difficult to find. Um, I I feel like I don't know. I'm trying to think of a very I'm genuinely like I don't want to leave this I don't want to end this on such a fucking I don't even know if it's nihilistic, but like on such a like note. Um, my squeaky ass chair. Um, I don't know, man. It's Monday. Monday for some reason just seems to be a day where I just have all the energy in the world, all the opinions, all the thoughts, and then throughout the week I'm just like I don't have anything to talk about. Oh, here's something funny. So this is probably the last thing I talk about. Um, I I did a podcast, like maybe like the second one I did, third one I did. I was talking about different animes that I like, and I'm not that big of an anime person. And a lot of it has to do with the art style. I am much more keen to read a manga than to watch an anime. Simply because with a manga I can control the pacing. Um, I don't have to feel like I got to spend 20 minutes watching this. And if this isn't, I'm just not a big watcher. I don't watch a lot of stuff. I listen to a lot of things. I listen to podcasts. I listen to Let's Plays. I listen to radio theater. I listen to, if I'm trying to learn Chinese so I can listen to like Chinese opera. I'm trying to learn different languages so I can listen to podcasts in different languages. Um, I listen to more things because I can do other things while I'm listening to something. When it comes to watching something, I literally you have to sit down and watch it. And I'm just not the type of person to do that. Like I get bored watching stuff, which is another topic actually that I'm probably going to append to this one because um I so anyway, I'm not a big fan of watching stuff. So the most of the anime-ish media I consume is manga, comics, And I have tried on multiple occasions to get into One Piece. Multiple occasions. I've tried watching the show. I've tried reading the manga. I've tried because I like the idea of it so much. It's just certain things about it that keep me it's so imaginative and I love it. But it's so long and it's daunting. But I thought about it and I was reading it a couple nights ago, about a week ago. And I realized something. It is so much easier for me to read One Piece, specifically One Piece, when I skip the dialogue. And I'm sure some like if anyone listening is a One Piece fan, they just cringed when they heard that. But I skip dialogue. I literally skip all of the text, or like I'd say 80% of the text. I skip it. I just look at the pictures. I just look at the images and I just read from there. And I just go from that. Um and it's faster. I'm genuinely getting through the story faster and I still know what's happening. I have a genuine understanding of what's happening. And here's the reason why. Um I am a firm believer of this. I learned this when I was in theater and in film. When I was studying film and theater in college, and this is it's that you need to understand when it comes to creating media, you need to understand what sensation that media is primarily indulging. Manga, comics, you read them. You look at them. So a novel you read. You are reading a novel. You are reading the words and your imagination is putting together, excuse me, what's happening. With a manga, you are looking at the images. So a good story, a good manga is discernible and understandable. A good comic in general, not just manga, any comic, you can understand and put together the story and what's happening to a very good degree. Like you can genuinely and generally understand what's happening through the images by themselves. You don't have to read what's happening. You don't have to be able to read it to know what's going on. Because it's a picture book. It's a comic. Um that is the sign of a good manga, a good comic, is you can understand what's happening and follow the story without reading the text. The text should be secondary, it should be reinforcing, but it should not be mandatory to understand what's going on. And so far, I found One Piece is generally understandable and it's easy to follow along without reading the text. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't care. I can tell what's happening just from the paneling. Now, I will say I'm at Skype here right now. I will say Oda has a tendency to kind of for my taste, it's a little panel heavy. There's a lot of congestion in the panels. There's a lot going on. That's coming from me, somebody who likes mangas like Baki and Vagabond. Um, where there's not that much paneling. The images are very lot of full pages or double pagers and just very big images. Not that much paneling. Oda has quite a bit of paneling. He does his like big things once sometimes, but also the way he draws perspective can sometimes be confusing simply because the medium of manga is black and white. So it's kind of hard to tell like what exactly you're looking at sometimes. Um, but that's just, nitpicking. But that's the sign of a good manga is that I can tell what's going on. In film, this is what I learned in film is film a movie, you watch a movie with your eyeballs. The cinematography and the storyboarding should be such that you can understand what is happening in the film without hearing it. A good movie is a movie that you can understand what's going on with the movie on mute and no subtitles, or a movie that is that is in a different language you don't understand, but you can follow along and be like, yeah, I kind of get what's going on. I understand it. I got it. That, in my opinion, is a sign of a like good. Well, I'm not gonna say good because there's plenty of movies that don't do that and are considered good movies. But in my opinion, if I were to direct a movie or produce a movie or whatever, that would be an emphasis, is that the viewer can understand what's happening even if they don't speak the language and they can't hear it. They can just watch it and understand. Same with the audio department of, a movie or a film or an animation or whatever. You should be able to know what's happening. The script should be written and the audio should be mixed or done in such a way that you understand what's happening without seeing the movie. You can literally listen to the movie and tell what's going on. Now, that's not as much of a, like, that's not as strong of a requirement because you essentially watch a movie. But the reason I say that, and I learned this because I remember I was listening to Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, on, it was a radio play. And it's still on YouTube. I could put a link in there. If you just type in like Shakespeare radio play or like Hamlet radio play or Macbeth late radio play, you'll find it. But the way they did it, it's a play, it's theater, but the way they did it, it's all audio, and they add the special effects in the background, the ambient sounds. Obviously the actors are reading their lines and they're really immersed in it, and it's to the point where you can't even tell whether, they're really on stage or what's it. You are literally right there. You're in there. You're like, it's so vivid. The sounding and the mixing and all that is so vivid. Your imagination, it I can't even explain it. You just have to listen to it. It's like, it's so good. You think about audiobooks and you listen to an audiobook, and it takes time and funding to do stuff like, in the radio play. But you ever listen to an audiobook and, it's, you find this a lot with LibriVox recordings, which I understand why they do it. It's so that most people will be able to follow along, even if English is not your first language. But it's very monotone. It's just like, and then he walked over to the cafe, and he opened the door, and the bell jingled, and he sat down. It's very simple, and I don't know, if I were to record an audiobook or have a book written specifically to be an audiobook, it, I would have direction for sounding, because that really puts you there. And I've heard some audiobooks where they add the ambience and they add the special effects, and it really enhances the experience. Like, honestly, I would absolutely adore being able to go to a theater, right? An audio theater, and you listen, it's totally dark, maybe some lights here and there, whatever. You sit down and they play surround sound of an audiobook. And there's ambience and there's sound effects, and your imagination is allowed to just go insane because you're listening. I mean, it would, obviously the audiobook would have to be broken up because most audiobooks are over 7 hours long, but you get what I'm saying, is that it's a theater specifically for listening. You go to a movie theater, and for me, like I said, I don't mind watching movies. I get bored very quickly. I need, unless I have someone to talk to during the movie. This is why you can never take me to a movie theater. Don't ever. I can't go to movie theaters because I like to talk. Obviously, because I'm doing a podcast. I like to talk during movies. I like to talk during shows. I'm that person. I am that guy. Like, I do that. I'm sorry. And I don't pause. I don't pause. Unless it's super good and I'm like really into it, I will talk over a show. I will talk over a movie. I'm like that. But um Yeah, I just I need that interaction. I need to bat ideas off of. So I don't watch movies because if I'm not gonna watch a movie by myself, I don't like to. Sometimes I will. Like I think the last movie I genuinely sat down and watched by myself was Akira, which if you can't believe, well, if you know me, you can believe it because you know I live under a rock. Um, I had not seen until like recently, but um, yeah, that I got into a very heated debate with a coworker about the very thing. He's a very big One Piece fan, and I told him I was reading it without reading the dialogue. He is very into lore and backstory and all that, and I think him hearing me say that, I thought he was going to have an aneurysm. I'm pretty sure he popped a blood vessel in his eye. Just the sheer, just just that just drove him insane. Um, one last thing, one last topic, and then I'm done because my throat is starting to hurt from talking this much. um, interaction with what you're watching. I This is the reason I don't play games, and I there's another debate I got into with him about it. Was in games. I don't play a lot of games. I'm really not a gamer. I played enough games when I was a teenager. I played a lot of games as a teenager to genuinely just cope with how lonely I was. Um, I don't like games with a lot of story. I really don't. Um, I don't like games with really any story. And when it comes to game, like if I'm watching someone play a game, let's say I'm curious about a game and I'm watching someone do a long play of it or a playthrough or whatever, and I'm watching the story beats, that's fine because then it's like I'm watching a movie. And so, I'm like genuinely into it. And I hate when long players or play people who do like playthroughs of games run through everything. They sprint through everything. Like, bro, why are you sprinting through it? The reason I'm watching you play this game is because I can't afford it or I don't have it and I want to like immerse in this whole thing, but you're sprinting from objective to objective. Like, God, that drives me insane. But and that's why like in my playthrough videos, I generally just walk everywhere. Like some games, there's not that much to immerse in, but in games I do where I there is a story or an immersion factor to it, I try to walk everywhere. I take my time, really get into it. Anyway, um I'm not a fan of games with stories, and I'm also not a fan of watching games. So this is one of the reasons I don't play that many games, at least like AAA, like big budget games, because a lot of them are essentially movies. Like I'll use God of War for example. It's an amazing movie. Like if I haven't played it, obviously I haven't played it, but I don't want to play it. I wouldn't want to play a game like God of War Ragnarok. Why? Because it's just too many cutscenes. I'm in the game. I want to play the game. I don't want a story to tell me why I need to care about playing this game. So this is the argument I was making. If you have ever seen Aaron Hansen or Ego Raptor do his sequelitis, he explains this perfectly well. And I genuinely agree with this. You take a game like Minecraft or Legend of Zelda, Skyrim to an extent. You're dropped in this world, and okay, Skyrim's not an example of this, but I think about Legend of Zelda or whatever, like the original Legend of Zelda, like the very first one, and the second one to a degree. You're dropped here, and you don't know what's going on. You're just here, and you go into a cave, and a guy sells you a sword, and I'm not trying to just take what Eagle Raptor said. I mean, it's an old video, but I'm not trying to say what he said verbatim, but I'm just kind of reinforcing the point he made and then adding my own thing of like, you are not told what you need to do. The story unfolds as you act. The game doesn't enforce the story upon you. You develop the story as you play. And the elements of the game reinforce your motivation and your objective. So let's say you go get your sword and then you go to a new screen. Oh, there's these monsters. These monsters are attacking me. Well, I got this sword, so I'm going to fight them off. And I got the sword here, so maybe there's other stuff I can pick up here. And every screen, you're not given anything for fighting them. You get maybe a health, you know, you get like extra ammo, but you don't get experience points. You don't get anything for fighting these things. So you're not, there's no like incentive to want to keep fighting other than just, unless you just like fighting them off. So you start getting the point of like, well, damn, I'm tired of fighting these things. Like, these things keep talking about Ganon, this big bad. So if I kill him, then these things go away, and I won't have to deal with them. That's just, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know if that's really proving my point, but that's just, the idea of you are, you are inconvenienced by battle. And therefore, you're incentivized to end battle by beating the game, to end the conflict by beating the game. Games where you get experience for fighting, game like RPGs, you're not incentivized to stop fighting because you get stuff for fighting. So you're not really incentivized to follow the story and end the conflict because you are being rewarded by the conflict. Does that make sense? So it's like, oh, you gotta, let's say, so for example, I tried playing Mass Effect, right? And I kind of gave up because it's just such a story heavy game. I'm just like, I don't care. But you, or God of War, for instance, like fighting, you get stuff for fighting. You get cooler and cooler abilities for fighting. So it's kind of like, why would I want to progress the story when I can just keep getting better and stronger and stronger? Like, I'm not inconvenienced by battle other than the fact that I die, but there's no penalty for dying. It's not like Sifu where, or like a game where like, oh, you lose abilities or something from dying. Like you're incentivized to keep fighting, so why would you want to stop? The other thing too is motivation to continue the game. In my as a gamer, as someone who's playing a game, I don't want to be told why I should care about playing this game. I don't want to be told why I want to do this. I just want to organically feel that I want to keep going for this reason or that. And there are going to be little nuggets of it here and there. There could be little things here and there that are like, yeah, maybe you might want to go do that. Maybe you might want to go do this. Maybe you want to continue the story for like curiosity's sake. But I don't want something where it's like, you are the chosen da 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 and you gotta go do this da 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 because da da da, and you well, you get what I'm saying with that. The other thing I miss in games are silent protagonists. I really miss silent protagonists. This is why. As someone who is playing a game, I don't want my actions as the player. I want the game to happen to me as the player. I don't want it to happen to the character that I'm playing as. Does that make sense? When I'm playing a game, I want the game to happen to me, right? Or the avatar that I made to represent myself in this game. Once you add opinions to this character that I'm playing as, the game is no longer happening to me. It's happening to the character. When you play Grand Theft Auto, the stuff happening is happening to these characters. It's not happening to me as a player. But when I was playing something like Grand Theft Auto 3, where your protagonist is silent, doesn't say anything, has no real personality outside of what you choose to do, the game is happening indirectly to you because it's lapsing over them because they don't react to the character from the game isn't reacting to anything really. They're just kind of following the story beats and it's happening to you in a way. It's not quite as direct because the most direct experience would be like something like Skyrim or some first person perspective game where characters are literally interacting with you, the player. Um, but and that's just the nature of what the game is. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. I just, for me personally, can't get into games like that. I prefer a game where I'm not told why I should care. Just playing the game makes me want to care. Um, Now I play games that are the contrary to that, like Shadow of the Colossus. You are very much told why you should care, but and that's an amazing game. That's a like phenomenal game. So I'm not saying it doesn't always work. It's just my preference now. Maybe back then it didn't bother me as much. And now it's like I just want to play a game that is a game and acknowledges that it is a game, and is not. I don't. Well, this goes into the next point of if I'm playing a game, I don't want to be interrupted. I don't want my gameplay to stop so I now have to watch a movie. That irks me so much. Like, it drives me insane. I do not want to stop playing and watch a movie. And I'm not saying all games, obviously, I think a lot of indie games are the contrary to this, but this is the reason why I can't play games like God of War. I can't play certain games because it's just like I don't want to stop what I'm doing to watch this cutscene. I don't care. I don't care about the story. I'm sorry. I don't. Why don't I care? Because it's not happening to me. It's happening to these characters that I'm supposed to be playing as, which is further influencing my decisions. Because if I'm playing as a character who is remorseful or doesn't want to do crazy things or doesn't want to do this or that, I'm not incentivized as a player to do those things because I'm supposed to be role playing as this character versus a silent protagonist where it's like they don't have an opinion. I can just do whatever I want. And now I can really immerse in this role as the player. Um, the point I was making with that is, uh, silent protagonists. Man, I lost my train of thought. It's going away. It's bleeding out of my ears. My train of thought. Chugga 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 train. It's out of my ear. What was the point I was making with all of this? Oh, Skyrim is a good example of not taking you out of the game when you are engaged in a quote unquote cutscene. So in a game like Skyrim, and I'm sure plenty of other games, I just don't play that many games, so I don't know. But I what I'm saying is this: if I were to ever code a game or make a game, the idea would be that cutscenes are organic. So when you stop to talk to an NPC, the world around you doesn't stop. Nothing freezes, nothing stops. Like things still happen. So if you are engaged in combat and you decide to talk to an NPC for whatever reason, you're gonna get attacked. Like the AI is gonna be like, oh well, he's talking, I'm still gonna attack him. You're not taken out of a cutscene because of a certain story beat. Um, you're just things just happen. Um, that's to me that I prefer stuff like that. Um, yeah. Anyway, I've been talking a lot because it's been a long time since I did one of these. And I've more or less exhausted every topic I could think of. And I'm also tired. I feel like I burned like 700 calories just talking right now. That's a great way to lose weight. You want to lose weight? Start a podcast and just talk and just get really animated about it. Um, but yeah, so we're coming up on the end of January. I hope anyone listening to this has a wonderful week. I hope good things happen, and even if bad things happen, I hope you learn from those bad things and take the lessons and realize that life is all about just your perspective, good things and bad things. Really, it's just things, and whether or not you look at it as a good thing or a bad thing is going to influence whether or not it is a good thing or a bad thing. So it is much easier to see the good in the things that happen instead of dwelling on the bad because it's all about your perspective. And yeah, I don't know when I'm going to do another one of these, but stay. I don't know. I'm not good at outros. So bye.